My feminist boss told me that I didn't deserve my paycheck, so I sued her, and now she's begging for forgiveness. Ever since I began working at this company 3 years ago, my boss made my life a living nightmare, and I could never figure out why she seemed to hate me so much. She would purposefully assign me double the workload of my colleagues, and then berate me in front of everyone when I couldn't complete it all on time. She would talk to me like I was her personal assistant, rather than a qualified professional, ordering me to fetch her coffee, pick up her dry cleaning, and run personal errands that had nothing to do with my actual job description. When I tried to refuse, she would threaten to report me for insubordination, and at the time, I was too scared of losing my job to call her bluff, so I just went along with her demands. But she took my compliance as weakness and kept pushing my boundaries further and further. One time, the entire office floor was going on a company retreat to a destination I had always dreamed of visiting, and I had been looking forward to it for months. But literally one day before we were meant to leave, my boss pulled me aside and canceled my invitation. She said I had too much work that needed to be completed urgently and couldn't afford to take time off. But the work she was referring to was a project she had dumped on me at the last minute that wasn't even supposed to be my responsibility. She had waited until the final moment to tell me specifically, so I couldn't fight it or make alternative arrangements, and I had to watch my colleagues leave for the trip while I stayed behind alone in the empty office. Despite all of this mistreatment, I stayed at the company because the salary was genuinely excellent, and I was trying to build up my savings so I would never have to live paycheck to paycheck again. My plan was to save enough money to give myself a financial cushion and then start looking for another job where I could work in peace without constant harassment. But before I could execute that plan, my boss went way too far and crossed a line that I couldn't ignore. At the end of December, I noticed that my salary hadn't been deposited into my account, even after a full week of waiting past the usual payday. I checked with HR, and they told me to speak directly with my boss about it, so I sent her a professional text message asking what was going on with my paycheck. Her response left me in absolute shock, and I had to read it multiple times to make sure I wasn't misunderstanding. She told me that I wasn't going to receive my paycheck for December because she had reviewed my work and found it below her standards, and she had decided that I didn't deserve to be compensated for that month. I replied that I had worked harder than ever that month, and my performance metrics were actually the highest they had ever been, and even if they weren't satisfactory, withholding someone's entire salary without warning or documentation wasn't legal. She didn't take my pushback well at all, and began going on a rant that revealed exactly what she had been thinking about me all along. She said I needed to watch my attitude and accept that I wasn't getting paid because she had made that decision, and it was final. Then she accused me of being one of those men who believe they're better than women, and said I probably just couldn't handle having a female boss, which was why I was complaining so much. She told me to deal with it and stop crying about the situation. I was completely appalled to finally understand what had been driving her behavior all this time. She had been holding resentment against me based on assumptions about my beliefs that had no basis in reality, and now she was using that imagined grievance to justify stealing my wages. I decided right then that I was no longer going to tolerate her ridiculous and illegal behavior. Thankfully, that entire conversation had happened over text, so I had undeniable written proof of everything she said. I immediately contacted a lawyer and explained the entire situation from the beginning, including the excessive workload, the personal errands, the canceled trip, and now the withheld paycheck. He was adamant that I should sue because this was an extremely clear case of workplace harassment and wage theft. I agreed to move forward because I knew the company cared more about their public reputation than almost anything else, and a discrimination lawsuit would be a permanent stain they would desperately want to avoid. Within days of filing, their legal team requested an urgent meeting to discuss settling. They were prepared to terminate my boss immediately. They offered me 10 times my monthly salary if I agreed to drop the case and sign an NDA. And based on my actual performance metrics, which they had finally bothered to review, I was being promoted to the exact position held by the person who denied me my paycheck. I would be taking her job.